Okay, I guess let's get going. My name is David Manel, and today's webinar is going to be on help your clients manage and grow their businesses with accounting power. I'm going to be showing different features in the program that can help you watch over your clients, let them know what's going on, give them better advice, and things of that nature. Um, the webinar will be available to view probably by tomorrow in the program in Accounting Power. And okay, let's get going. Okay, the first tool that I want to show, and a very powerful tool, is the Client Snapshot. The Client Snapshot gives you a lot of important information about all of your clients in a couple of convenient screens, because we have the Snapshot and also the Client Activity screens now. Specific alerts can be set up and they will display in red on the screen. And I'm going to go into how you set them up, different type of alerts we have, and things like that. Some of the features that are on the screen is at a glance, you can see the cash balance. You can see accounts receivable and accounts payable. You can see if anything is set up in the suspense account. And suspense is when you're not sure how to code a transaction. It goes into suspense, and this way you know later that it needs to be taken care of. When you come in here, you'll see that it's there. You can set up check amounts, that any check above a certain amount will show up if it's been done. For your own management purposes of seeing how the different clients are going, you can see the year ending, you can see the current period for the client, and if you've given access to clients, you can see when the last time they've logged in. Okay, so here we have a couple of alerts. I've set up a few specific examples so we can look through and see how they're set up and how to track them down when you notice that they're there. So let's examine how to set up the alerts first. In this case, we have an large accounts receivable amount and also a check amount. So the first thing you do in order to set up the alerts is you go to the little alert symbol, or the exclamation mark, in the upper right hand corner. You click on that, and that will take you into the alert screen. So you can also use that screen once alerts are set up, just to come in and view the various alerts. But for us, what we want to do now is go into setup, and this brings up the alert setup screen. Now the setup screen, I mentioned it before, but just to go say it again, this is client specific. And the good thing about that is different thresholds can mean different things for different clients. For one client, if accounts receivable is above 30,000, that might be a really major thing. Another client, it might not be major until it's above 300,000, or writing a check for $15,000 might be a common occurrence for one client, whereas for others it's something that's cause for alarm, or at least concern for you to check up on and see what's going on. So I'm going to go into some of the different alerts that we have in the program. I'm not going to go to all of them, but the first one is an alert for a cash account balance. So in this case, I set up that if the cash account balance is below $12,500, I want the alert to be triggered. And you can set it up for either the cash account, or if any account is above that amount. So for this one, I'm only concerned if the account 1,000 is above that, is below that amount. Same thing going for the checks. Here I've set up that anytime a check is written for above a certain dollar amount, there'll be an alert will be triggered. And in this case, instead of setting it up just coming out of one particular account, I set it up that it can come out of any account. The suspense account has transactions. I mentioned before what the suspense account is, and what this will do is once this one is on, it'll alert you that there are transactions in that suspense account. One other thing, I'm not showing it now, but in the program, when you do have the suspense transactions, what you do is you go under write-up, and there's a field there for suspense. You can go right there, and that's where they'll all be lumped together, so it's easy to find the ones that still need to be coded. For accounts receivable, it's kind of like with the cash account, where you can either have an individual account or all of them. In this case, you have the choice to either do a total combined, or if any one vendor is above that amount. So in my case, or any one customer or vendor is above the amount. So in my case, I'm looking for the total of all accounts receivable was above 30,000. So you see here, I could have had either total combined or any. Now I'm going to show for the expense account. And for the expense account, what you can do is if you want to follow a particular account, or you want to be notified on any particular account, you set it up. So in this case, I think I was thinking auto expense might be a good one to track. And I mean, there's various reasons why you may want to track different expense accounts. It could be the client is known for putting all of his all gasoline expenses or something, whether they're personal or not, are going into auto expense. Or it could be any number of reasons. But this makes it easy for you to track and see the total balance on any one account. The expense invoice entered, this is if any individual invoice is greater than this amount, there'll be a notification. So this doesn't matter. It's not really based upon the total for any vendor. It's one particular transaction. And the one right below it, which is something that can really help if you have clients who are paying bills and that they are on, some of them are where they get a discount if they pay before a certain date. This is something that can really save them a little money and help them with their cash flow. So if you select this, when the discount due, like if it was a net or a 2% in 30 days or something, when it gets to the 25th day, if it hasn't been paid yet, we'll list all of the invoices that are expiring soon that need to be paid, or else the client will lose out on that discount. Okay, so here we go. We're at the client snapshot. We notice there's two things that are in red. One is the accounts receivable, 345,000. Another is the check amount, 27,500. So now as the accountant, I come here in the morning, I look at all my clients. It's always a good practice, I think, every day to start by going to the snapshot and also the activity screens. Anyway, I come here, I see which ones are in red, and I want to know what to do about these transactions, or is there anything I should be concerned about? So what you do is first I'm going to go into the check amount. So I look at this check amount, 27,500, and then you would have to open up that particular client in order to see, to find out where that check came from. So you can click right on the client name. It'll open up the client. In this particular case, I was already on the client, but this is just for demonstration purposes. So I would click on Widget Manufacturing. That'll take me into that client. And then if I click on the alert screen, it'll take me right into all of the alerts. That little exclamation point up there will take me into all the alerts. And you'll notice right here all the information about that check, and if there were several checks, they would all be listed here. Is right here for you to see. So you can see, oh yeah, transaction for 27,500 was written out of the checking account, which is cash, the date, August 10th. I did it when I was getting ready for the webinar today. It'll let you know the reference number, and it also lets you know who it was made out to. In this case, it's our favorite, the Internal Revenue Service. If you had customers, were customers above 20,000 or something, it would list each and every customer that had an outstanding balance above that amount for you. So this alert screen can be a very powerful screen to come to on the clients. This is also where you would see all the discounts that are ready to be to expire without taking advantage of them. And it gives just a little bit of other information, even if no alerts were found, such it'll let you know what date the last bank rec was. Another thing you could do in order to find the check, or if you wanted to actually go to the transaction, is you could go to the search in the program, and you could search for transactions above $15,000. And then you could find it. You could go directly there, but it pretty much gives you the same information that's here. The point I'm trying to make there is that there's always different ways to do things depending upon what you find to be the best for your own preferences and your own systems. So now let's get to the one with the receivables. So let's track down and find out, why are those receivables so high? So what you would do, once again, first you'd have to open up that client. And when you're in that client, you would go to the dashboard. Or at least this is one of the ways. You could go to the dashboard. From the dashboard, we have a screen here, shows customer balances. You can see it's 345,000. And what I would do is I would come to the amount field. You can, on any of these fields in here, you can sort. So I would go to the amount field, click on it, and now it's been sorted by largest to smallest on the receivables. So you're able to come in here and you're able to see the Yellowstone Backcountry Company has an outstanding customer balance of $130,200. Now you're able to actually click on Yellowstone Backcountry and go right into that particular customer to see information about that customer. But maybe the total outstanding doesn't really give you the whole picture. So another thing you could do is you could click on due date. So I click on due date, and this kind of paints a different picture. You can see that the Yellowstone is not really an old outstanding bill, so it may or may not be a problem. But you see that there's the Central Valley Mercantile here, the Yosemites. These companies haven't paid for quite a while. And what you can do with your client now, you can let them know, I see this particular vendor is not paid. Customer is not paid for a long time. You can try to find out what the issue is. You can give them advice as far as on collectibles and collecting and things like that. So that's really the way you use that particular one. Now you can also, could have gone to receivables, and you could have drilled down from there instead of coming to the dashboard to find out information about the invoices and who has the outstanding balances. So once again, this is just one of many ways you can do things in the program. Now we also have alerts on ratios. So if you notice over here, we have current ratio, gross profit margin, working capital, and there were a couple of more. And you can know, what is a good current ratio for the particular business that client is in. And then you can be notified with an alert when they're outside of that range. Same thing with the gross profit margin. You can come here and enter what the gross profit margin is, probably a low one for that company, maybe. So then you want anything below that number that you enter, 10%, to show up. One little thing I wanted to point out today, I don't know, it's not really dealing with this particular webinar, but and I don't know how many of you receive our daily newsletter, but today in the daily news, I picked out an article. It was from CPA Practice Advisor, and I made it as the top story. And on the subject of profit margins, it had that the most profitable industry is accounting, tax preparation, bookkeeping, and payroll services with a net profit margin, not gross, but net profit margin of 18.3%. So just, I don't know, I thought it was just an interesting piece of information you may be interested in. I mean, part of it is it's high because of sweat work or not really being paid, you know, for the individual person not really being, the owner not really being paid. Part of that profit margin is his own pay probably, depending upon how you're reporting your salary and stuff. But anyway, I thought it was an interesting piece of information. Ratios, we have about 18 or 20 different ratios in the program, and we will calculate the current year's ratio and also the ratio for that same period in the prior year, and you can enter the industry standards so that you can come in and see how it compares against what is good for that particular industry. Obviously, a manufacturing company will have completely different rates than, say, a service industry. If you're ever wondering how we calculate the various ratios, right in the help system, we don't mention our help system too much in these webinars, but the help is excellent. And by clicking on the little question mark, that would be if I had a whole screen, it's always up here in the right-hand corner, but I showed a smaller picture. But by clicking on that question mark, when you're in this screen, it'll bring up ratios, and it will show for each of the ratios how we calculate it. I mean, some are pretty straight. These are pretty straightforward. I think working capital, current ratio, quick ratio, but it's there, and the help is always there ready for you to use. The performance analysis report. The performance analysis report is something that you can send out to your clients automatically when you close a period and close a year. You can actually set up a complete report set that you want to send out, and I always recommend one of the things that should go with it is the report is performance analysis. The performance analysis report gives a good income and expense graph. It has those ratios there, so you can send it out to your client, then let them know, you know, your profit margin's getting kind of low or things like that. It also has an operating income graph. This one looks a little bit funny because the income cut off at the end, but that's because for this particular client that I have set up online, they make their payments first, and then I record all the income later. So this is just they haven't recorded the income in the very last period. But this is a very powerful tool you can give to your clients. Clients love to receive it. It really looks professional. So the next thing I want to go into are the client activity screens. Now the client activity screens are like the Snapshot, that they give you important information about all of your clients in one spot. And this is the client activity bookkeeping screen. The main thing that's in here is if you're offering a bill paying service to your clients, you can keep track of various stages that you're at in the bill paying service. I'm not really going into everything about the bill paying service, but quickly, a client can take a picture of a bill from their smartphone. It automatically goes into the system, and at that point it would be over here, a bill unprocessed. So in this case there were 11 that were unprocessed. The next step is to have them approved, And then after they're approved, when the client approves them, then they come back and they're ready to be paid. And if they need to be printed, or if you have outstanding invoices that haven't received payments, also they show up here. And if you're setting up a merchant account for your client, when the client has a merchant account set up, they can then receive payments by emailing their invoices out to the clients. And this can be a real plus to the cash flow for the client, because it's always easier to collect that way. Because when you make it easy for a customer to pay, it speeds up the receivables. Lots of times people don't pay, not because they don't really want to, they just don't get around to it, especially in the service industry. So this way it's right in front of them, easy for them to pay. The other client activity screen is one for not just your bookkeeping clients, for all your clients. The main information in here is when you're doing bank feeds for the clients. So when you're importing information from the bank statement. It'll also show you checks to be printed. It'll show if they've registered for bank feeds. It'll show the last time you imported the bank statements. Another really powerful tool from both of these activity screens is the emailing system. So let's say if you want to set up a bunch of your clients for bank feeds, because the bank feeds, if you're doing the write-up, can really save you a lot of time. And if the client is doing bookkeeping, or if you're doing bookkeeping for the client, it can help with the bank recs. So anyway, you find the clients who are not registered for bank feeds. You would mark them all. So all in one spot, you can see the ones that you want to set up for. And once you do that, you would click on email, and we have several canned emails that can go out to clients. And you select from there which one you want to go, and it'll automatically be emailed out to them. And it's all done in one quick, easy step for you. Also, when they receive the email, whether it's for bank feeds or for approving a payroll, approving a bills for payment, or setting up the merchant account, all of the emails that clients receive are very easy for them to use. There's always a place that they just click on right from the email. They can receive the email whether they're on their computer or on a smartphone or smart device. They can click on the link and then move forward right from there without having to do any great amount of work or anything. Sorry. Okay. Now I showed the dashboard a little bit before for the receivables, but now I'm going to show some of the other features that are on the client dashboard. The client dashboard is, I always say the same thing, it's the complement to the Snapshot. Snapshot shows a little bit of information about all of your clients. The dashboard gives a much more in-depth view about one particular client. So the features that we have in here is a graph, a prior year income comparison graph, profit and loss comparison, projected cash balances, so we see based upon bills that need to be paid, and also receivables and the due date of the receivables. So we can see a projected income inflow and outflow of cash. You can also see the cash balances of all the cash accounts. And other features that are on the dashboard is a graph that shows, a circle pie graph shows expenses broken up according to the different categories for the expense. And you also have the ability, one I showed before, in the alerts where you can look on a specific account, you have the ability to set up in the dashboard the ability to see all transactions that go to a specific account. So in that one, it was the auto expenses. You could also set up in the dashboard. And there, instead of being alerted, when you come to the dashboard, you would see a list of all the transactions, and you could click on them to go further and examine them. And that would be done by coming over here into the setup. There's various things you can do with the setup Either you can choose not to show everything here. You can choose how you want to group on the graph that's showing. You can choose if you want your client to be able to see it, if they have permissions. And then over here we have easy links and then a summary of information. All these things help you keep on top of your client, and when you're keeping on top of what's happening with your client, it's much easier to offer them good, real-time, fast advice, which helps them and helps them with their bottom line. On the dashboard, we have actually 5 different graphs that you can see. I'm going to show 3 of them here, and I'm going to mention the other 2 later. One is an expense comparison. You can see the expense from one year compared to what the expenses were for the year before. Another one is income versus expenses. So you can see total income against how much the total expenses were. And it'll show you down at the bottom what the net income is for the period shown on the graph. And you also have the ability to compare income from year to year. So I can see that income has pretty much gone up in 2015 over 2014 at a glance. And the other 2 graphs that I'm not showing right now deal with budgeting. You can compare budgeted income by period and also budgeted expenses by period. But what I do want to show with budgeting is how you use the budget and what it can do for you and your client. So first of all, you have to set up the budget. You have a few different ways to set it up. You can, if you've already done one for that client, you can go from a previous budget, and then you would have the option which budget to select from. You can set up an unlimited number of budgets. You also have the ability to just manually go in and enter the amounts. You have the ability to go from previous data, and the previous data means the actual previous data, not a previous budget, what their income and expenses were in the previous year. And that will do if one period was high and one period was low, it actually brings whatever they were from which period. Or you can have annualized previous data, which if total expenses for a particular account, say were 120, it spreads them equally at $10,000 for each month if you're doing monthly. So anyway, those are the ways you can set it up. Once you're ready to set it up, you simply click on Create, and it'll create the budget for you. And after the budget is created, you're taken to this screen. And in here, I'm going to show you the different ways you can edit the budget. I mean, the first choice would be you copied from a previous budget. You're just going to leave it alone, and that's fine. But many times you have a little tweaking you may want to do. So what you do is you click on the line that you want to adjust. So in this case, I'm going to go to Sales Miscellaneous. It brings up a little window. It'll have all the numbers that were already in there. So if it had come from somewhere, there would be numbers. If you're doing it manually, it would all be blank. It'll show you what the total is also. And if all you wanted to do was maybe change or alter 1 or 2 of them, you just go to each particular field and change the amounts. So that's one method you can use for editing. But maybe you know that what you want to budget for is a certain amount. So what you do is you come down here to the distribute amount area. So you enter the amount that you are budgeting for next year's sales. So in this case, they want a budget for $400,000. And then you have the ability, once you enter it, to spread it. And what it does, it will spread across all of the fields. So they all were 33,000, except we put the little rounding number in the last one. And if you want to edit a particular field because you know income is higher or lower in 1 or 2 periods, then you can just come in and edit that particular field. So like there, I went in and changed it to 45,000. which then brought the annual total up to 411,000. Now, once you have the budget set up, there's a few different reports that you can run with the budget. First one is the budget only. I'm not going to show that. That's mainly for, I would think more for verification that it's entered correctly, because it's not as powerful as doing a budget versus actual. You can select which budget you want to do the report for. You can select which period you want to do it for. And you can say if you want it to be just one single period, like if we just wanted to see the budget for August, or if we want year-to-date for August. And if you have departments, you have the ability to do budgeting by department or to put them all together. In this case, it is a client that's departments, but I did them as all. And also with grouping, you can choose to display the individual accounts, which when I show it in the report, you'll see that I'll point out which ones I did. But you can also choose to group them if you've set up groups with group codes. These are the same group codes you'd use for the financial statements. So I would just come here, I click on doing the report, and up it comes. It's a pretty nice report. It gives you the actual amount, it'll show the budgeted amount, it'll show you the variance, and it also will show you percentages. Now in this case, you'll notice I have widgets, gadgets, and miscellaneous are all listed out separately. If I had said group codes and I happen to have a group code set up that widgets, gadgets, and miscellaneous are all set up under one group called sales, then this would just show one line here. And that's really dependent upon the purpose of the budget report. You know, if you're doing more in-depth managerial accounting, you probably would want all of the individual fields broken out, but you have the ability to do it both ways. And as I mentioned before, the budget comparisons can also be viewed on that dashboard. So once you have a dashboard, I mean, once you have a budget set up, you'd be able to, when you're on the dashboard, to drill down and see the budget. You also have the ability when you send out the performance report, performance analysis report to your clients to include the budgets on there. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show as far as some of the different tools that we have in order to help you help your clients. And I mean, there's lots of things in the program that can be used for that purpose, but these are the most prominent ones, or I think the most powerful ones. But now I want to show some new features that we've added to the program. The first one I want to show is kind of dealing with the bank register. It's the cleared on date. So if what you do is you can go to the cash register, and you see we've added a new column there, which is cleared on. Really what it is, it's the period it cleared in. It's not the actual date that it cleared on. We don't really even have that in the system. We just have, when you do the bank rec, you mark a check as cleared. So when it was marked as cleared in that bank rec, we know which period it cleared on. So then it can always come here. If you're ever, you have a client and they're saying, oh no, so-and-so says this check was never paid, it's very easy to go back now and find that check and say, yeah, it cleared in such and such a period. So that's one advantage of this. Another thing you can do, which is true as I showed before, almost all of these types of screens where you have the columns and a spreadsheet type screen, you have the sorting ability. So if I click on cleared on, I can sort, and then all of the uncleared checks will show up there. So I can see all the checks in one easy spot here that have not cleared yet. So that's one way that can be used. So I know these 3 checks have not been cleared yet. You can also come to the report, the cash register report, and you'll be able to see in that report which period any check cleared on. Another new feature deals with the printing of the bank reconciliation report. I mean, we've always had that report, but we added a new feature in that report. So if you click on print when you're in the bank rec, once it's been done, before it prints out, you'll have an option if you would like to print the cleared transactions also. So you can either choose, of course, yes or no. Sometimes people aren't really interested in it because if you have a 100 transactions that clear every period or 200 transactions that clear, you don't necessarily want that on the report that you're putting in your system just for the bank rec. But you have that ability. Once you say yes, the report will come out. It'll list all the outstanding checks, all the cleared checks. It'll also list all the outstanding deposits and all the cleared deposits. Another thing we did is I showed you before where you can go to the client activity screen in order to send out to clients that you want to have bills approved in order to be paid. But you also have the ability when you go right to the pay bill screen. So if you come to the pay bill screen for a particular client, there's 10 bills that need to be approved. You just click on email for approval. The email goes out to the client. As soon as the client has marked it in when he receives the email, it's automatically updated in the system that these are now ready to pay. Improved date handling on the report screen. So if I'm entering the date for a report that has dates, not a report that's just for a period. So right now the report will default to whatever the current period is. So if the current period was May, I'm going to come in, it's going to say from May 1st to May 31st. But maybe I want to do the report for June. Before, what you would have to do, you would have to change the beginning date and the ending date. What we've done is we've made it that once you change the beginning date, the ending date automatically updates to the end of that period. So the other side, you have to remember, if you're doing a report like this and you don't want it just for one period, you set the beginning date first and then you set the end date next, because that way it won't be reset when you set the beginning date. I mean, it's not really a large thing, but each little thing that saves you a little work, it just is a nice convenience to have there. We've added an attachment indicator on the pay bill screen. So if a client has taken pictures of bills for you to enter into the system, and they've been entered into the system, or if a client themselves has also entered their own bills and attached them to the particular invoices. Now when you come to the pay bill screen, there'll be a little paper clip over there, and then you can click on the paper clip to open up the bill. So if a client is coming and he wants to review and see which bills really they want to approve to pay, or if they come over here and they see the amount doesn't seem right or something, they click on the attachment and they can see the actual invoice that it was created from. The new general journal screen. This is a new screen which is for reviewing. We already have the ability to review from the trial balance, the view financials, and also from the review journals. It works pretty much the same as all of them. You go to trial balance, general ledger. From here, you'll have the ability to either view all accounts, or if you just want to see a general journal for a particular account. When the report is open, you're able to export it to Excel. It's drillable to the original transaction. And a lot of accountants, we like working with with the the screen. The, so when you come in here, you're coming in, you're in the general ledger. You see all the transactions for a particular period. If you want to go in my case, I was looking just for one account. I could come over here if I want to export to Excel. If I want to review a particular transaction when I'm looking at it, I just drill down to that transaction and it opens up. Here we see that Martin Van Buren, he bought some widgets. You could make any changes if they needed to be made, and then it would update to the general ledger. Another thing I want to show, and this is something so you'll not come to the system now. This was released today on an update. The menu has been reorganized, a lot of different features. This helps you, it's like a more logical method of organization. Plus some of them, especially the sales drop down was getting very long because we had so many different options for you to use. So here I'm going to show you the different places that things have gone. Under company, tax codes have moved to company accounts. And beginning balances was always here, but it was a different spot that you had to go to get to. But if you want to enter beginning balances, they're there. Banking, the cash register and the check register are now combined on one tab, and on one menu option, and you just click between the tabs to see which one, depending upon what you wanted. For sales, we've added a customer center. So from the customer center, basically you can see all the things about that particular, or about your customers in one spot. You now have the customer list, customer transactions, customer statements, and also the ability to do refund checks right from that spot. The credit memo and the estimate, they move to the sales invoice screen. So when you come to the sales invoice screen, if you're just entering a regular invoice, you just go ahead, enter it as you were always doing it. But if you're going to do a credit memo or an estimated, you just click on the button to do them now. We've also added or kind of consolidated our the buttons here for when you're in an invoice. The print and the email options are now both included under send. For expenses, kind of similar to the sales invoices, here the credit memo and the purchase order are both done from the enter bill screen. And we have a vendor screen, sort of like a vendor center, where you can see the vendor setup, vendor list, and bill payments. These all used to be separate options under expenses. Under trial balance, the thing that we changed here was we moved trial balance entry to this trial balance review screen. And that was pretty much of all the things that I wanted to show for today. Now, a couple of things I mentioned before that this will be available in the program to see. It should be up there by tomorrow. If you have any questions, feel free to send them to me. I see there is one. Do I have a good source for the industry standards for the KPIs? I do have a good source for it, and what I will do, I guess, I don't have the the address with me. I'm going to send an email out to all the attendees with the source that I suggest using. I mean, there's a lot of different sources. This is one that's free, and for the purposes of our ratios, it's very good. Anyway, if there's any other questions, feel free to ask me. If you have any questions later, any suggestions for the program, any suggestions for future webinars, my name is David Munnell. My email is dmunnell, M-U-N-N-E-L-L, @accountantsworld.com, or my phone number is 631-415-9252. I love hearing about suggestions for the program. I love hearing about things that you would like to see in future webinars. I appreciate the time you've given me to attend this webinar, and thank you very much, and I hope it was informative and it helped you. Thank you.